Welcome to the Leadership Expose podcast. This podcast is for purpose-driven leaders at diverse levels and organizations around the world who are seeking to scale and transform their leadership, to level up their business, and to create an impact in the lives of people all around them. Business and boardroom topics, trends, innovation, transformation, and the intersection with leadership is the focus. We enable success. I'm your host, Stephen Paul. In this episode, I'm delighted to host Dr. Swaroop Savanoor. Dr. Swaroop is a performance coach to elite international athletes as part of preparation for major international events for multiple sports, as well as for teams like Punjab Kings team, Indian football team, amongst many others. He's also the founder of MyMentalCoach, a sport and allied peak performance organization for businesses and individuals to assist in peak performance and maximize potential of success, happiness, and inner satisfaction. We'll hear about all of this and what this means and how he does it. Welcome, Dr. Swaroop. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Stephen. I'm doing very fine. And thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It's really a pleasure.
Awesome. You know, Dr. Swaroop, we've had a few conversations already, and I know where you're based, but for the purposes of our audience, tell us where are you based?
So I'm based in Pune, which is about 150 odd kilometers away from Mumbai, with people know normally in India. And it's a lovely bristling city that I live in, and I'm born and brought up in this city. So this is where I am.
Yeah, and I mean this time of the year is actually quite quite a great time. I know there's been a a major festival that's just passed through recently. So how are you all ramping up towards the end of the year?
Yes, you said it right. This is the time where I think so we have our major festival of Diwali, the festival of lights, as people know it. And I think so it's the light within that today we need to rekindle. And it's also the time of the year where we start getting some cold weather from the north, from the Himalayas. And the mood therefore is festive. There is that nice sense of how can I put it, of going out, wearing some lovely warm clothes and getting in the sun, which normally we are always there in the sun. But
Yeah,
now in these next 2-3 months, we love to go in the sun in this cold weather.
yeah,
And it's been good as we close to the nearing to the year end. I think so. Looking forward to it.
yeah. No, wonderful. Kind of re-energizing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. Dr. Swaroop, keen to hear about performance coaching and so forth. But before that, let's talk about you. I mean, tell us about your personal and professional journey and how all of this came together.
Yeah, it is, and I think so. It is. It's an interesting journey because I am educated as a orthodontist. I've done my master's in dental surgery and orthodontics way back in 1998. My dad was an orthodontist, and at that time there was no such career options that you could think of. There were no career counselors to go to, and for me, because I didn't have any other major interest that I had in mind, I naturally gravitated towards uh, going to orthodontics. I did that, completed. I started my practice in 1998, and although I ran a very successful practice and it was really enjoyable, earning a lot of money, but I realized that something was missing. I realized I couldn't live in that um, 10 by 20, 10 by 30 kind of a square foot practice, and the whole day I needed to get out. And I also realized something triggered actually that caused me to change my approach towards what I want to do and what is going to give me that meaning to life. And it is that trigger point that actually changed my career. And if you want, I would love to share a bit about it.
Yeah, yeah, keen to hear about it. So carry on. We're keen to understand how that transition from being an orthodontist to where you are now.
Absolutely. And it so happened that at that time, India was a different country from what it was today. At that time, Indians lacked the killer instinct. Probably Saurav Ganguly at that time had still not waved his shirt at the Lord's Gallery in England at the NatWest 2003 trophy. And you could say that the only body part missing in Indians at that time was guts.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of talk about it around it. The Kargil war had happened, and at that impressionable age of 28, 29 years, there was a piece of news that came in the papers that was written by the chief of army staff that time, General Padmanabhan of the Indian Army. And he said, and I quote, that if we can't win at sports, we can't win wars. And it really struck me hard. I cut that paper, and today I'm happy to say that after 21 years, that newspaper cutting is on my wall, and that inspires me every day, because that is the day I realized, you know what, this is what I want to do in my life.
Yeah.
And that's the journey when I started. And when I started this journey, I then went to Switzerland, because there was nothing called as sports psychology then. It is
Yeah.
just a very, very new profession. Psychology as a subject itself, from a performance point of view, was just about building.
Mm.
And I went to Switzerland. I did my study over there. It was a 1.5 year course. I came back and I thought that I would have a red carpet welcome, and forget red. There was no carpet at all. uh, and so to survive that journey, and today to be here and whatever small work that I have done is very gratifying, but is very satisfying. But on a larger note, what it also told me is that today people can really be what they want to be, and they can actually do something that they can't imagine doing today. And it's all about having that inspiration within yourself, and when you do that, you will circumvent all the challenges that you are going to come your way. I think so. For me, that was uh, uh, that is the most gratifying point in this journey, is what I can say. And to also put it in a funny way, they say that you take your life to the next level. So I say that yes, therefore I went from dental to mental, which is just 6 inches up.
I was just going to say that, Yeah. Yeah. No, go on.
Yes, so I think so. For me, this has been the journey so far, and it's been great. It's been really fascinating to delve into the human psyche, to delve into human behavior, to delve
Yeah.
into thoughts, emotions, behavior, and how all these things are limiting or allowing us to explore our own potential is just so fascinating.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think so. I'm just at the start of this journey.
Yeah. No, wonderful. That's such a wonderful description. And, it's as you were just describing, you're curious about one aspect of this particular domain. You go and learn about it, and then you come back to bring that message. It does take a lot of time because of the awareness and recognition. So as you were
Right.
describing about the red carpet welcome, that happens in strides over time.
Yes.
So on that theme, definitely recognize that you are already doing a lot of performance coaching to elite international athletes and teams.
Right.
So keen to hear about how you got into that aspect, but also,
Hmm.
you were describing about, performance coaching, and what it entails. So want to hear about specifically what that actually means and how you bring an audience like elite teams to into the mix.
Hmm. And it's a great question, because I think so. For me, the approach of looking at it is the first step for athletes to start using it. And when I'm saying athletes, in a way, I think so, I would like to use this opportunity to talk on a more broader audience base, because I think so today, in a way, we are all athletes, whether
Yeah.
you're actually playing a sport or not. An athlete is defined probably as a person who goes towards his goal by optimizing his potential. Um, and I think so it's the same for everyone. And the approach towards the mental part or the performance part, I think so, is very critical. Till now, we looked at psychology from a very therapy, help based kind of a thought process. Now, the fact of the matter is that performance is also finally connected to your mindset.
Mm.
You might have the best technical training, you might have the best physical training, but if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to go beyond a certain limit. And therefore, performance is inherently connected to consistency of performance. And for you to have consistency for that performance, you need to have a consistent mindset.
Yeah.
Now, you can have a consistent body by going to the gym every day, but you can't have a consistent mindset, because what's happening inside your mind is something that you are not even aware of.
Yeah.
For example, it's very common for athletes to, say that, I don't know what happened to me. I got up, I just felt good about myself. There were no thoughts coming to me. There were no emotions as such. I went to the match, and if it's cricket match, I just saw the ball. I was just serving so wonderfully. I was just putting so wonderfully that day that the ball was just going. I was not doing anything much.
Mm.
And but is that something that's replicating? It's not replicatable, because it's something that happened to you within you, which you yourself are not aware of.
Yeah.
Your energy, your hormones, your moods, all these are factored in when that mindset is there. But what can you do when it's not there?
Yeah.
And therefore, I normally do not applaud an athlete who will say, sir, doc, I really felt so good about myself today, and I went and did this and this. And I said, that's great. I
Mm.
would rather applaud a player who says, I was not in a great frame of mind. I was mentally not there. I don't know what happened to me. My body was shaking. I was just not getting that feeling. I was not able to see the ball. So many thoughts were coming to me, and yet I could perform well. I
Yeah.
think so. That's the difference today between good and great. And
Yeah.
performance coaching, in a nutshell, is all about that. How can you be consistent in your mindset so that you can be consistent in your performances?
Yeah, it's such an interesting aspect, isn't it? Because I'm a strong advocate of the mindset as well. And you
Right.
rightly said it's not just about athletes, it's about uh, people across different domains, businesses, individuals, professionals, whatever they are, human beings in essence.
Yeah. Yes, very true.
So, the other aspect that I took away here is, you mentioned about therapy, and it's not about therapy, it's about mental training as well. So that difference
Yes.
between therapy and training and that consistency. So I want to explore this a little bit more. Um,
Hmm.
when we talk about mindset and we talk about feeling and so forth, a lot of it is also attributed towards the environment.
Hmm.
So, when you're under a lot of pressure and when you're under a lot of, you think about a team or even in a business or an individual, when you're under a lot of pressure, the environment, lots of external factors here, how do you train your mindset to be intact and
Hmm.
per your vision? I know it's a very big question, but share your insights, please, just a little bit.
Sure, sure, absolutely. And it's a great, great question that you've asked, because it's very fine to talk about mental training and mindset training, but what does it really mean on a practical level? As you gave an example of an athlete maybe under pressure, having those thoughts and emotions, and what can he do about it is finally the bottom line. And I think so that today you have got specific methods, ways, techniques, strategies that you can apply to train your mind whenever you have those thoughts and emotions that come to you.
Mm.
Now, you talked about pressure, and if you actually look about it in a more objective way, what do we feel pressure about? let's take an example of, uh, if you look at pressure, pressure is generally about fear, right? Pressure is about
Absolutely.
some,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pressure is about fear. Pressure is about that sense of insecurity.
Hmm.
Pressure is about not knowing what's going to happen ahead. So, generally speaking, pressure is always about the future. Now, and it can be of any type, but it's all about the future, about how I'm going to perform well, about what if the boss is going to, not liking me. It's about, what if the partner says no to me in the relationship that I am in. So all these things are going to build pressure on you. And whenever you feel that sense of pressure, your body, without you, your mind rather, without you being aware, is going to trigger a set of default thoughts and emotions. And these default thoughts and emotions are actually not in your control.
Yeah.
Those thoughts and emotions are default based on your personality, based on your genetics, based on your prior experiences. And therefore, when you experience those things suddenly in times of pressure, you just don't realize what's happening to you. Your body, your stomach might get upset, your thoughts, you are thinking, overthinking, you're not able to sleep, you're not able to eat, and you are just somebody that you don't recognize at all.
Mm.
And that's why you feel that sense of lack of control about your own self. And
Mm.
that leads obviously to how you're going to rationalize those options that are there in front of you, rationalize decision making, and therefore probably make mistakes, or not be your own self when you are taking those decisions.
Yeah.
And that's what pressure does to you.
Yeah.
And I think so, therefore, understanding what pressure is doing to you is the first step towards solving what pressure can do to you.
Yeah.
And therefore, as I always say, self awareness is the key to self improvement.
Yeah.
It's so critical for us to first understand about our mind before we start working on it. But once we start working on it, knowing that we do not have a choice over these default thoughts and emotions that are nevertheless going to come to you, you surely have a choice on what you can do once they come to you.
Yeah.
And that's where the mental training part comes to.
Yeah.
So, whenever you're faced with those thoughts, what can you do something about it? Absolutely, you can do something about it. Whenever you're faced with those emotions that start flowing through your body because of those hormones from your pituitary gland that are now suddenly secreting out, yes, you can do something to close that tap.
Yeah.
And it is these tick marks that you do for each of those elements, about the thinking part, about the cognitive part, about the feeling part, and then about the behavior part. As a result of these three things, by control is these three things, you're controlling behavior, you're controlling the outcome, and that's how you close that loop of fear. That's
Yeah.
how you circumvent fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's such a enlightening way of describing it, and the takeaways for me, and I'm fully an advocate of this because I see this not only with other people but even with me. I'm a human being, so
yeah, yeah,
it definitely happens to me as well.
yes,
So
absolutely.
so um, the self-awareness aspect is such an important piece, because
Yeah.
if you don't make that effort to become even self-aware, then there's a problem. It's half the problem is self-awareness. And then the second aspect that I took away was, making that choice as well. You
Yeah.
have that choice, how to deal with it, and then obviously the solutions, which is the training aspect. You can actually get the training aspects, the thinking, the cognitive aspects in motion once you know how to do
Yeah.
all of this.
Yes, very true. Very true. And just to add to this, Stephen, because I think so, you said that self awareness is half the battle won. I would say that self awareness is actually 90% of the battle won.
Mm, you're right.
Because on a
Yeah, yeah.
because on a practical level, when I work with leaders, when I work with elite athletes, the biggest problem that I see is their inability to look at their own vulnerable selves.
Mm,
Because you reach a particular position in your life through your talent, through your ability, you will find it difficult to accept your own mental weaknesses. You might accept areas of technical improvement, you might aspect areas of physical improvement, you might want to go and learn something, but when it comes to your mind, you are not expected to have these negative thoughts, or have these vulnerabilities of your mind. And I
Yeah.
think so that's what makes it difficult for people to really change.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And I remember, my first experience of this, if I look at it in the last 15 years, about 10 years ago, I mean, I was in business world as well, facing
Right.
these issues, and also, how to deal with leaders and, the
Yeah.
pressures that they face and so forth. And
Yeah. Hmm.
several years ago, I was at Harvard Business School, and I met Dr. Daniel Goleman, and about
Hmm.
emotional intelligence, and he's got his
Yes.
framework and so forth. And self-awareness was one of his big pieces, and I had an opportunity to speak with him, and he came and
Hmm.
spoke to the entire team. And these concepts are not new, but it resonated
Hmm.
with me, even more when somebody actually talks a little bit more about self-awareness and some of the different domains of it as well. So
Right.
all of this I relate to. And
Right.
what I see with many leaders, with many individuals, is the lack of that understanding, and
Yeah.
they don't know how to deal with it aspect, which
Yeah.
is where I'm seeing, performance coaching in its broader sense addresses. And you
Very
you know
true.
you are an expert in that. So I'm quite keen to just hear, can you share maybe a story that has resulted in a highly positive outcome? I know you touched on a few aspects, but is there anything that you can
Hmm.
share from your experience that has resulted in a highly
Sure.
positive outcome?
Absolutely. But something that comes very recently in mind that touches my heart and gives me that great sense of satisfaction is about a 22-year-old athlete from a small city in the north of India. And he had a call, and he was obviously not in his own self. We could make that out from the way he was talking. And he was a shooter, and he was a national level kind of a champion about 3 years back, before COVID struck. And after that, just 2 months before this call, he had lost both his parents, as well as, I think so, one more member of the family.
Right.
And he wanted to get back to the sport with the right mindset. And it so happened that we started our sessions, and the first tournament he won the gold over there. And for me, I think so, the joy was not about winning the gold. I think so the joy was about him realizing that he has got an opportunity to get back. He has got an opportunity to realize his dreams after all the things that he has seen. And for me, as a performance coach, it was that great satisfaction and that emotional high, even as a coach, from a human being point of view, where I could hear those words, with that sense of emotion, which probably I cannot even describe over here.
Yeah.
And it might be a small tournament, just at a national level for him, but I think so it was a very big step. And I
Yeah.
think so therefore these kind of small moments that have been that I get every month, every week, are more probably something that I love to share, because I think so these are the moments where athletes really discover their own potential and look towards realizing even greater dreams.
Yeah.
From a team point of view, I can surely share about my stint with the Vidarbha Ranji team, and I was with them for 3 years. And Ranji is equivalent to first division cricket in England. And when I went there, the last time this team had won anything was in 1974, 75, very long time back, when they were in the quarters, when they had reached the quarterfinals. But afterwards, they never even qualified.
Yeah.
And for me, when I went there, I realized that uh, I needed to get over fear. So we had a lot of conversations about fear, and I'm talking about 20-year olds from a slightly rural background of Maharashtra, so
Yeah.
in India. So it's very even difficult to have these kind of conversations with the athletes.
Yeah.
But to develop that into a training program, to develop some on-court work along with some fantastic coaches who are very supportive of this factor, and the management too, without which I cannot do all these things. Eventually, in the third year, they topped all the formats, qualified in all the formats from T20, one day to test to the 4-day game. And in
Yeah.
the next year, they became the champions, board champions.
In terms of big outcomes, I can say that I have had many over so many years, and it's been a privilege and a blessing to experience those moments of joy that the athlete shares after their wins. Very recently, I can surely share something because it is connected to the pride of the country, and that's always special. When one of my athletes, Priyanka, she won the silver at the Commonwealth Games that was recently held in England, and it was the first time that a walker uh, won a medal in the last 25 years. So that was special. Then I had one about 6 years back when one of my athletes also won the Asian Championships, the first ever. He won a gold in wrestling, and that was very special. Currently, also my one of my athletes who is India number one and world top 10 badminton player, and he's also gone on to win a lot of goals for the country. And all these are of course special, but there are also special moments when an athlete comes and suddenly shares the joy of playing confidently and uh, uh, being fearless and playing the way they always wanted to. And I think so those are bigger outcomes from a mental point of view, because those are more process oriented, and there is a great sense of joy and satisfaction that whatever strategies or the mental training parts are working.
So I think so. These are also some wonderful stories from teams that I think gave such a wonderful outcome, and it's really a very satisfying part of this journey. Actually,
Yeah. Amazing, Dr. Swaroop. That's
thank you.
that's really positive to see that transition, that shift of
Yeah.
those
Yes.
individuals, those teams, and that is
Yeah.
such a it must be such a great satisfaction to them as well, and obviously
It
hence
is.
performance.
Yes, it is.
So I'm keen to hear, when we look at external factors, broader things like pandemic and the current economic situation, whether it's felt within where you are or even globally, do you have a view on how that actually impacts, performance coaching or what you do?
It has. I think so. I can see a shift in the way people are looking at their lives.
Mm,
I can see. I feel that people. It's not only about about the money today. I think so, it's all about happiness and fulfillment. And I think so in the post-COVID world, these are the two narratives that are going to drive people and motivate people into giving their best in whatever they are doing.
yeah.
Because opportunities are there now. But I think so. The question is, will I be happy in the opportunities that I'm getting?
Yeah.
And therefore, for leaders and for organizations as well as for teams, how do you align your thoughts with the thoughts of your team? I think so is the greatest challenge that I feel organizations have, because people now have and are looking at their work from a very different mindset.
Mm,
So do we have that outside in perspective that I feel leaders and decision makers should have? That is number one.
yeah.
The second challenge that I'm seeing that uh, how can leaders or teams deal with cross cultural challenges? The fact of the matter is that today we are living in a very diverse world,
Yeah.
And how can we become more sensitive to cross cultural needs is a very, very determining factor for performance, productivity, and success for their team, whether at the corporate level or even at at the elite sports level. For example, I've, I was with the Punjab Kings IPL team for 2 years, and we had athletes from different nationalities, from West Indians to Australians to English players to Indian senior and junior players. And
Mm.
how do you, as leaders, how do you, as a leadership group, how do you understand these differing needs and then yet make them be a cohesive unit when they're playing,
Yeah,
is such an important but actually such a difficult part that actually people don't realize.
yeah,
And I think so that's the reason why you have got so many performance coaches also now becoming a part of elite training. And the
yeah,
same with the corporate world, and I'm sure, Stephen, that you of course are have got so much of experience in the corporate world, uh, will, I think so, connect to this cross cultural challenge that I think
yeah,
so today's leaders have.
yeah, yeah. It's true. Everything that you've just mentioned here are challenges, and I can definitely relate to some of those cross-cultural aspects as well.
Right,
Businesses don't recognize that, it's
right.
and by that I mean, it's every day just go and execute your strategy without really stepping back and thinking about the
Hmm.
human cultural aspects, the diversity aspects, the diversity with a capital D, and not just from a gender perspective, but from a
Yeah,
thinking, from
yeah.
a cultural, so many things,
Very true.
that is lacking, and it all comes down to also individuals and leaders, as to how
Yeah.
they're positioning their companies and their talents, their workforce. And you mentioned about ways of working and trends that have changed, so that has got a big impact on the challenges and how you address them these days,
Very true.
because the mode of working has changed, mode of doing things have changed. So
Yes.
therefore, there is a big emphasis on how, performance itself.
Yes, very true. And I think so. An additional point that I can make over here, apart from these two, is how do you recognize performers? How do you identify and how do you make performers actually perform?
Mm,
Especially in the corporate world, or let us look at teams, for example. Let us say a player is not doing well for 3 matches. How do you evaluate performance is a very critical, and how do you communicate that to the athlete is a very important part of that athlete either continuing to suffer, probably getting out of the team with a very negative kind of a outlook towards either the leadership group or even about himself, about his own performance. And what can leaders do to make these non-performers become performers?
yeah,
Now in a team, the need for a non-performing athlete or a person or a unit to become a performer is much more immediate. It is much more visible. The success is much more visible. But I
yeah.
think so in the corporate level, we see so many people, and I've talked to so many leaders and HRs, and they're talking about non-performers
Mhm.
that are there, and it's actually reducing the productivity of teams. But we don't realize that it's incumbent upon the leadership, it's incumbent upon us to make non-performers performers, because
Yeah,
I truly believe that there is no reason for any person to not to perform to his potential. It's an inherent human need to be happy about performance.
yeah, yeah,
It's a human need. I want to be happy when I go back home and sleep because I did a good job today.
yeah,
Why wouldn't anybody want to do that?
yeah,
How can you create that environment, that culture that will allow non-performers to become good performers is the key critical question to ask.
yeah,
Today when we, it's very easy to tag a person a non-performer and therefore give him a notice period and maybe tell him to leave. But
mm,
think about, even in a corporate world, think about the vetting process that has happened through which that person has come into a company, probably had those interviews, vetted through that process, and now he's part of the company. Why would this guy not be a performer?
yeah, yeah,
Right? So I think so we need to minutely start looking at performance areas and how we can empower people to become performers, because there's a natural need for everyone to be performing well.
Yeah. It's an end to end, right? It's not just sitting at
Yeah,
one end of the strand. It's an end to end piece, and completely agree with you.
yeah,
Dr. Swaroop, we're coming to a close now.
yeah.
Keen to hear any other messages that you have for leaders, or a challenge to teams, individuals, that you'd like to share here.
Um, I feel for leaders, my message is first to listen. I think so. Leaders need to really listen, and sometimes our minds prevents us from listening because we have got our own narratives that are working in our mind. And unless we empathetically listen, we are not going to identify problems and areas of challenge in our organization or in a team. So that is one. Second is to inherently trust. I think so. Trust is such a critical component, and today it's very easy to break trust, or very easy to uh, define people as trusty but trustworthy or untrustworthy. But I think so we need to inherently trust people in our organization with whom we work with, knowing that they want to do well. It's for us to help them to get the job done well. I think so that's the second thing. And especially with leaders, I would surely say that it's all about improving not only the areas that are outwardly, but it's also about improving your own mindset. And we are all humans finally, and we need to keep improving our mindset. And I want people to master their mental game. I think so today opportunities are everywhere, but do we have the mindset to maximize those opportunities is the play over here. And I feel people today have access to mental training. You don't have to go for therapy, but you can surely train your mind the way you train your body to become the best that you can be, and actually even go beyond what you think is impossible today. And I think so that's where even that is a realization for me too, in this journey over the last 18 years. And therefore I've started my company, MyMentalCoach, which is a mental training company, not therapy, but helping athletes, individuals, corporates, students be the best that they can be. And I think so that's the message that I would like to share with everyone here, that you have got the opportunity to be the best that you can be, and it's don't let go of this opportunity.
Enlightening wisdom from Dr. Swaroop. Thank you very much for being with us, Dr. Swaroop, and for sharing your journey, but also these great insights on performance and what it actually means, and how we as human beings, individuals, can actually take this on board. Thank you.
Thank, thank you so much, Stephen. It was wonderful having this chat with you. It's a wonderful podcast. And thanks again. It was wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay, folks, thank you very much for listening in, and stay tuned for our next episode where we hear from an entrepreneur and founder on climate tech and how she's making a difference globally. Stay tuned. Hey, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You're now seeing this part of the video also because you consume some of my content, insights, and teachings. Maybe you've been to my LinkedIn page or website, or seen other social media ads, or listened to my podcast. I'm Stephen Paul, a business and transformational executive coach, strategic advisor, leader, and board member. I've been in diverse roles: corporate executive, entrepreneur, and worked with businesses and firms of all sizes, built and launched businesses, created high-impact boards, and so forth in 4 continents. I get it. I've been there, done that. But what is different is I bring a unique perspective and a playbook. I've helped 100+ business leaders just like you to scale and align their leadership, top teams, the board, and overall business for growth. Leaders like Ivana from medium-sized company in the EU who grew 150% and expanded globally in under 5 months. After she started to work with me over facilitated sessions in an initial 3 days, I helped fine-tune their strategy, and align their leadership team and board to be a cohesive driving force to achieve their dreams and outcomes. I want to teach you the same thing and more on how to scale and align your leadership team and board so you can increase your business growth and value. Get clarity on what is the next right strategy for you. There are multiple ways we can work with you. Number one, click the link for a free, non-obligatory 60-minute initial strategic session. Let's get a feel for your dreams, your vision, your challenges, and let me convert that into a route map for you where we can co-develop and co-pilot. Number two, enroll in an innovative and intuitive digital online course that I have created to help you transform. It's called Unshakable Resilience. It is the ultimate program for individuals and business leaders like you who want to be equipped at a personal and professional level to respond to any form of challenges or in crisis situations and take on opportunities with grit, resilience, and build a mindset of success. In essence, you want to be unshakable, thrive in crisis, take on opportunities in the face of adversity, and build a success mindset. So, click the link below to learn more on how I can personally help you individually and your firm to scale and align your leadership team and business and pivot in a transformational way. And for you to experience this, whatever the challenge you're facing, get in touch with me. Let's discuss, and I will share my insight rapidly to enable your transformation. Click the links below.